Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're checking out the 2024 What If Venom miniseries that gives us a new story based on some of the events of the past playing out differently. So with that said, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so heading into this miniseries, we're heading back in time for another alternate telling of the events that took place in Web of Spider-Man issue 1, when Peter attempted to get rid of the symbiote when he got way too close to the huge bell on the roof of Our Lady of Saints Church. And prior to this, Peter had already discovered that his suit was sentient, with this taking place after his initial visit to the Baxter building, which resulted in the symbiote escaping, bonding with Peter again, and refusing to let go. Because at the time when the symbiote returned to Peter, it was doing everything in its power to keep him from returning it to the Baxter building. So when he stumbled across this opportunity to be free of it once and for all, he risked his life to make this happen. And it was here where the symbiote left him and made its way down into Our Lady of Saints Church. Though for us, it wouldn't be until a few years later where we got the full story of what happened to the symbiote after that, in Amazing Spider-Man issue 300, where Eddie Brock gave the full breakdown of how he went into that same church that night to end it all, only to be covered with a shadow that enlightened him, matching his hatred and focusing his purpose. So I want you guys to keep in mind, with us heading back to this point, we are revisiting a very dark place for the symbiote, and this story stays very faithful to that. But getting started, the first character we're introduced to is Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, who at this point in time already had her powers. She was still an active attorney, very hardworking, first one in the office and the last one out. And this is the thing that turns out to lead to the pivotal moment that changes how this night was supposed to go. Because on any other night, she could have left a couple minutes later, a couple minutes earlier, but on this night, she left just in time to be walking by Our Lady of Saints Church the moment that Eddie Brock went racing in with a pistol on his hip, which of course caught Jennifer's attention. So from here, we know how this would have gone down had Jennifer not shown up, with Eddie's despair escalating through different stages, with him going on about how he's ruined, as well as how much he hates Spider-Man, who's too strong for him to do anything to, so that's why he saw this as his only choice. So Jennifer ends up stopping Eddie, even before the symbiote gets to him. She offers to stay here and talk things out with Eddie. So for a moment they do, and what's interesting is the fact that in this conversation, Eddie's quite curious about what it's like to be a superhero. But this talk doesn't go for too long, because now the symbiote sees something it likes more than Eddie, so it ends up grabbing Jennifer instead. And for a moment here, we see the symbiote say that it likes the other one's hatred. But you possess something more, something in your blood. It makes you angry. It tastes like strength, like power, like venom. Which right there kind of has me like, I don't so much recall the symbiote looking for power, but rather it was more of the case of both the symbiote and Eddie hating Spider-Man. Because like I mentioned earlier, the symbiote had just been rejected by Spider-Man, and in Eddie's case, when he was writing for the Daily Globe, he had done a series of articles on Sin Eater, which caused Emil Gregg to reach out to him, confessing that he was the Sin Eater. But after Spider-Man had proven that the Sin Eater was actually Stan Carter, Eddie lost everything, and all that was left was a hatred for Spider-Man. So to me, that just seems like a stronger motivation for symbiosis. But instead of taking that route, the story's leading more into the controlling side of the symbiote, which in a way sets us up for where this miniseries is headed. But after seeing Jennifer get grabbed, Eddie tries to help by throwing the pistol at the symbiote, which then has it going on to call him a coward, and expressing that to also be the reason why it chose Jennifer over him. So next we just see Eddie running out of the church screaming for help, telling people there's a monster in there. And Jennifer comes out just after, bonded with the symbiote, who next tells her to sit this one out as it takes control of Jennifer's body from here. Which sounds like a good time to segue to this video's sponsor, Age of Canaan, written and illustrated by Nir Levie, who's an author and artist of Jewish heritage, who's pieced together a collection of stories after researching the vast tapestry of human mythological history, where he found an abundance of narratives with only a fraction standing the test of time. So he took it upon himself to carefully piece together a number of these stories into a fantasy graphic novel comprised of 5 intertwined tales that still show to be relevant in the modern age. So to learn more, I got details in the description, as well as a link that'll take you over to Zoop, where you can get your copy today. So from here, with the symbiote taking over Jennifer, much like what happened with 616 Peter on a number of occasions, This leads to her waking up the next day extremely exhausted, with no recollection of what took place the night before, which as you can imagine is the worst thing in her profession, being a lawyer. So over time, her nightly activities lead to a number of boogeyman sightings that make their way to the paper. And as time goes on, this pattern continues for a while, with her working by day and the symbiote taking over at night. But we also learn that there's cases where this happens, when Jennifer would regain consciousness and briefly realize where she is and what she's doing. But brushing through much of this, over the course of time, this pattern would have symbiote Jennifer returning to a number of the same locations, which not only led to more of the boogeyman headlines, but it also caught the attention of others who had been watching these patterns, which leads to a night where we get a crazy turn of events, where we find symbiote Jennifer in Central Park getting ready to eat some homeless people, and she even knocked one guy out of his shoe. But this isn't even the crazy part, because before things get too out of hand, these civilians are saved by Sabretooth. And it's not so much the case of Sabretooth coming out here like, fear not, citizens, but instead we're told that Sabretooth was hired to go after Jennifer, and his employer, who remains to be a secret at this point in the story, equipped them with a special bell designed to let off a sonic disturbance to weaken the symbiote once they fought. So eventually Sabretooth could take a sample of the symbiote and take it back to his employer. But as he leaves, the symbiote doesn't even bother to go after him, which Jennifer doesn't agree with, but there's nothing they can really do given the fact that they're even further weakened after being attacked with sonics and not having eaten for a while. But as they're leaving, they're approached by a taxi driver named Jake Lockley, which right there should tell you where this is going. But the taxi driver tries to wave her down, only to have Jennifer ignore him. So he pulls over, he gets out the car, and he lets her know that he's no stranger to hearing voices in his head, and he knows that she's not either. So he introduces himself and tells her that he knows of someone who can help with her condition, with that someone of course being Moon Knight. So Jennifer agrees and they head on their way, so they can go somewhere and he can just turn into Moon Knight. And after this, we go over to Chinatown for a bit of a teaser for the next character that we'll be following. But with how it's done, it's set up to be kind of a mystery, which is kind of funny because not too many people walk around with a silhouette of this type of hairstyle, paired with the sheepskin leather bomber jacket. But we follow this guy as he heads to the bar, gets a shot of bourbon, just before making his way to the back to speak to the Triad leader. And with doing so, he doesn't let anyone get in his way. And so after a number of shots being fired, limbs flying left and right, and perhaps a gun or two getting cut in half, eventually these guys are like, hey, this dude must have body armor. So one of them says, shoot him in the head. So they try it, only for it to sound like bullets bouncing off of some metal object. So eventually this stranger gets down to the last guy. And I'm telling you, it's super mysterious right now. We don't know who this stranger is, but the stranger gets down to the last guy. And the only thing that follows is the sound of the last dude's head being severed from his body, only for it to then thump its way over to the Triad boss. Because this stranger was Wolverine, and he's made his way here because he believes that Sabretooth is working for the Triads, though I have a feeling that Wolverine is in for a surprise. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support, and for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.